My entire life, I have been an extremely emotionally reactive person. When everyone else was happy, I was ecstatic. When everyone else was sad, I was depressed. When everyone else was afraid, I was horrified. And when everyone else was angry, I was outraged. And when everyone else was ecstatic, I was euphoric. When everyone else was depressed, I was miserable. You get the point. Often, I would spin these intense emotions as a positive aspect of who I was. I wasn't just emotional. I was powerful and full of heart. The stronger the emotion, the stronger I was. Everyone else was just boring and dumbed down in comparison, not caring nearly as much as I did. I felt really special because of how much I felt. But one day, this view completely flipped on its head. I wasn't special in a good way anymore. At least, that was the first time it flipped on its head. God knows that's unstable too. I hadn't experienced any trauma that I would describe as major. No, not at all. But what I did experience were events that had repeated over and over, changing everything about who I am. I would be invalidated a lot, and because of my strong emotions, there would be moments where I had unintentionally hurt others through them. After months or weeks or, to be honest and more realistic, seconds of bottling up, I would explode with rage, fear, sadness, and a whole bunch of other negative emotions. I would go on the attack, feeling like a rabid dog who had escaped from its leash. I would bite, hold on, rip out flesh, only to fall back soon after with regret, shame, and guilt. So much guilt for acting out of line, for lashing out, for having these strong, horrible, disgusting feelings that no other person in my life seemed to have. Nobody else in my life got so angry that they lash out at people they're supposed to love. At the end of the day, this just bubbles into more rage and agony, more and more emotional outbursts that serve to hurt the people I love. That serves to reinforce the idea that I'm nothing but bad. I am destined to lose everyone in my life. And that's how it'll be forever. Because these emotionally intense cards that I hold are ones I've been dealt since birth, and they cannot be replaced or overwritten. This is who I am, meaning that I am faulty. Okay, really dramatic intro aside, the style of this video may seem odd for my channel since, hi, I make videos where I play games on my phone that are going to cause major issues with my wrists in the future. Oh my god, when did I get so good at it? Oh. Well, recently I've been making a few random video essays on topics that interest me, but let's be honest, is anyone really watching those? But I really want to get this out there because the topic I am covering today is something that is very, very, very important to me. Plus, I love D4DJ and I do not talk about it enough on this channel, especially not for the amount that I love the game. I've fallen off of it recently with the new characters bewildering me, but I need to talk more about my love for Muni Ohnaruto because I feel like people just don't appreciate her enough. I wrote a whole card on this topic and tiered in an event surrounding it with the goal of people seeing me in the live rooms, friending me, and then they'd click the link on my profile so they could go read it and spread the Muni BPD propaganda. Also, don't go looking for that card because it is gone. I deleted it the second I finished this script. I'm not. No. But yeah, I wanted to make this video so I could have a more comprehensive version of everything I've written down on there and so it can reach more people. I am so determined to spread this to D4DJ fans. Even if you don't play D4DJ, I hope this can be good information on the series, the character, or even just BPD itself. I personally cannot understand how anyone with the knowledge of borderline personality disorder can see Muni Ohnaruto and think, nah, she doesn't seem like she has anything to do with BPD. Are you blind? Are you ignorant? Are you a fool? Quick disclaimer, most of what I am pulling for this is like basic information about BPD with a heap of personal experience. So take everything I say with a grain of salt. Not only will some of the things I say not apply to every single person with BPD, but nearly all of it is based on my life with the disorder. That's not to say that everything here is just me projecting, because that is not the case at all. She literally has BPD, she told me herself, because I have BPD and I'm her. Okay, so what is BPD? BPD, or borderline personality disorder, which also has a much more fitting name called emotionally unstable personality disorder, is a cluster B disorder that is centered around interpersonal relationships. People with BPD are the way we are because of the personality we were born with, usually being more reactive than others, and abuse, emotional neglect, or even just repeated invalidation during one's youth. Abuse, neglect, or invalidation that can make someone feel like they've been abandoned by the person who they were relying on. Here are some basic symptoms of BPD. Unstable self-image, black and white thinking, high emotional reactivity, marked impulsivity, utilizing unhealthy coping mechanisms such as eating, or shopping sprees, intense fear of abandonment, common outbursts and displays of anger, engaging in attention-seeking behaviors, trouble with interpersonal relationships, and short-term stress-related paranoia. There are a lot of them, and especially a lot of minor ones that people don't talk about much, but those are the basics. As someone with BPD, I can tell you that I'm not exactly easy to deal with. We can be more than sensitive, often reading anything as a sign of abandonment and immediately going on the defensive, which often involves lashing out at those we really don't want to be lashing out at. And when we're not lashing out, it's like we're ripping off our own skin trying not to. Here's a quick example of a call you might have with someone with BPD. Hey, you texted me last night and seemed down. Are you okay?
You're messaging me now? Wow, am I that unimportant to you? Do you really find me that annoying? Am I just a drag to you to the point that you can't even be there for me when I need you to? Wow, Maho, that is so low.
My brother in Christ, I was asleep.
Why do you want me to kill myself?
It's important to note that these actions aren't always present in people with BPD because they can push them down and or have a form of the disorder called quiet BPD or discouraged BPD, where the symptoms and actions aren't as apparent as they are more destructive internally. If someone with BPD isn't acting that way, they're probably thinking that way. It's really important to me that more people know about this headcanon that I personally see a little too much canon evidence for, even though I know it most definitely wasn't intentional representation, because with it, I think Muni can be one of the most positive examples of a character with BPD out there. Genuinely, everything Muni does and says has struck a chord with me, and in a way that doesn't shy away from the scary parts of the disorder, while highlighting that people like Muni aren't broken or any less deserving of love. Truly, it warms my heart. I want to make this video not just so that more people with BPD can discover her and relate, but also so I can just show people how important she really is to me and how I have never felt more seen in my entire life because of her. So enough jibber jabber, let's actually get into why I think Muni has BPD. First off, what are Muni's symptoms? First of all, there's emotional dysregulation, maladaptive coping strategies, having an FP, intense fear of abandonment, engaging in attention-seeking behaviors, having an FP, trouble with interpersonal relationships, having an FP, frequent outbursts and displays of anger, having an FP, having an FP, having an FP, and did I mention that Muni has an FP? It's Rinku. For anyone who wants some receipts, I'll try to provide a few to the best of my ability, though I could most definitely make arguments as to why most of what she says is very, how should I say, emotional. Mainly attention-seeking with a need for love and appreciation in order to circumvent feelings of loneliness, loss, and abandonment. Most of the evidence I pull from will be from the anime, by the way, since it's very happy around heavy, and therefore Muni heavy. Episode 5 of the D4DJ anime features a lot of small moments adding to Muni having BPD, as well as giving us some insight into more of her personality, reactions, and home life. The main conflict of the episode is as follows. All the other members of DJ Mash and Rinku with VJ only plus Rei Togetsu. That is such a mouthful, let's start over. All the other members of the Rising DJ unit, which will soon be named Happy Round, are being praised for their abilities by students all over the school. However, only one of those members isn't being praised by name, and that member is Muni Ohnaruto. Because of this, Muni desperately wants to take center stage to be noticed all over the school. Rei comes over for a visit so she can learn more about Muni and write a song especially for her and all about her. Mainly here, Muni engages in attention-seeking behaviors and has frequent emotional outbursts. Some examples seen in this episode are Muni getting overly upset at people praising VJ only and not Muni Ohnaruto, even though VJ only is Muni Ohnaruto.
VJ いいねじゃなくて、ムニちゃんいいねじゃないとダメなの。それってどっちも同じじゃ。同じじゃない。同じだよね。
Which is so real, by the way. I get her 100%. At least for me, my BPD makes me need a lot of approval and praise from others to, like, keep me sane. Without it, I end up breaking down and assuming that since nobody cares about me, I'm not worth being around. I either lash out because, you don't care about me at all, can you pay attention to me, please? Or I shut down like, damn, am I nothing, bro? This is also definitely why This is also definitely why Muni ego surfs so much. Getting attention for BPD is like getting cocaine shot into your system. I'm so serious. And even though she is being praised as VJ only, and that is her stage name, it doesn't feel personal enough to Muni. It doesn't feel like she's actually being praised. It doesn't feel like she's actually receiving this love that she has a deficit for in her normal life, that she's being overlooked, that she's being abandoned. She also has a bunch of fantasies about getting attention. She even throws a mini temper tantrum before this. Another mini temper tantrum due to not receiving the attention she wants.
ンディことムニちゃんだってみんなに知ってもらえて、そんで私自身が褒められたいの。
So basically, attention-seeking behaviors to the max in this episode. Definitely one of Muni's more prominent symptoms. Before we continue to talk about more symptoms, there's something else I really need to mention about Muni's BPD. How it came about. In this episode, we learn that Muni's mother, who is implied to be the only parent in the household, was and is still frequently away from the home due to working often. Earlier in the anime, episode 3, we also learn that Rinku and Muni were best friends as kids. However, Rinku soon moved away to Tio in Africa. Muni didn't have many friends, especially not ones who were as close to her as Rinku was, and this only left her and her mother, who was extremely busy. These are two harsh instances of perceived abandonment for a young person to deal with, and both of these things could have very well been attributed to her BPD. Having your best friend, the most important person in your world, just disappear like that, and also not being able to get much love from your family, that is critical to the development of something like this, and it will last a lifetime. It's also important to know that BPD isn't solely caused by this abandonment in childhood and isn't entirely caused by instances that can be placed, because not every person who's been abandoned will have BPD. If someone has a personality that needs a lot of care and attention and they don't receive this care and attention, they can easily end up developing the disorder. As a person, Muni is timidly and humbly haughty, needing a lot of affection and love. The instances in which she was regrettably denied this love built up over time and developed into a personality disorder. I'd also like to mention that it isn't wise to blame Muni's mother for being busy with work or Rinku's moving away from Muni's BPD. The situation isn't Muni's fault, nor is it the fault of the people in her life that matter the most to her. Simply, the circumstances were just unfortunate. After talking about her attention-seeking symptom and where it comes from, let's talk about some more little details about her BPD. Because there are some more instances where Muni's gotten a little too silly goofy for her own good. I'm going to mention episode 12 here, and if anyone's wondering how I haven't gotten to that yet, oh, don't worry, I will bring up episode 12. Episode 12 is very important. This is similar to what I mentioned before, but Muni's outbursts are misunderstood, and not to mention frequently trivialized by Macho, wow, by Maho. This is an effect that can be common with BPD because people without the disorder may not understand how small things can cause these larger-than-life reactions. One example of this is when Rei plays a phrase saying it reminds her of Muni, and Muni gets overly upset because Rei does not get her at all yet.
例えばですけど
It's like the goofiest thing. It's so funny. It is a goofy phrase. And I will admit, I will not lie, I do this exact thing. Identity issues are a huge part of BPD, and when the identity we see and want others to see doesn't match up with what others are actually seeing, it's like you find everything you wish to be destroyed. It's a huge case of disillusionment. Yeah, unstable sense of self. That goes hard. One of Muni's defining traits is that she eats a lot of snack foods, and at the beginning of episode 12, we see Muni holding a large bunch of them. She could possibly be binging or eating her sorrows away, and forms of maladaptive coping are common for those with BPD. When Muni is introduced to Rei for the first time by Rinku, she seems to be really dismissive of her. This is most likely because Rinku is shown to be fond of Rei, someone Muni doesn't even know. When someone with BPD senses an important person to them may be choosing someone else over them, whether that's what it is or isn't happening outside of the borderline's head, they can become just as defensive as Muni has been. Which is crazy because she totally becomes Rei's girlfriend later, but we're not going to talk about that right now. Muni is visibly moody at the beginning of episode 12, and nobody seems to pay any mind or understand why it's even happening. This was most definitely due to her feeling inadequate over a period of time, not feeling very valued, and this definitely contributes to her outburst later in the episode. You could call me crazy for this because it's well, that wasn't directly stated on screen. I don't know, there's just something about her body language, the way she speaks, her attitude before episode 12's breakdown, it was really apparent to me. I felt like something was coming and that she was going to explode soon. During the rap scene in episode 12, Muni says, "You never heard a word I said, and you were gonna ditch," about Rinku, accusing her of not caring about Muni and abandoning her. This is how people with BPD can talk when they perceive that they've been abandoned, even if it's not what's happening in the real world. She just says, "You never cared about me, you're leaving me on purpose, you hate me, you're plotting against me, blah blah blah," even though that stuff really is not happening. Textbook BPD. Muni tends to be socially awkward and inept, struggling to respond to others even when given the praise and attention she wants. This isn't a major sign of BPD, it's just something I find relatable, as I don't usually get the affection I fantasize about so often, so when I do get it, I get really flustered, sheepish, or even snappy, even though I do heavily appreciate it. That was more so me a while ago though. Now I just kind of dissociate, so I just don't feel anything when it happens, because I'm just like, well, this isn't real and you're lying to me and it doesn't mean anything and none of this matters. This isn't supposed to be me venting, guys. Muni's song, Give Me Awesome, has lyrics such as, "Hey, stop leaving me on red. This isn't enough at all. Even though I'm alone, I'm not lonely at all." Which is followed up by, "I won't admit it, but I am a bit lonely. Everyone say, Muni-chan's awesome!" Getting a whole crowd to cheer your name. Girl, you are ill. Muni faced a pretty invalidating experience when she was younger that we see play out directly on screen. When she was set to have the role of a princess in an elementary school play, she was questioned and ridiculed instead of supported and praised, which led to her running away from the play at last minute.
ちゃんとできるのかな。あの子、声小さいしダメじゃない？絶対無理だよね。失敗したらやだ。だよね。劇台無しになったら私たちも恥ずかしいもんね。
Invalidation is single-handedly the biggest trigger for BPD. No amount of confidence could fight through something like that, at least not for me. Watching this scene, God, it was so horribly heartbreaking. Invalidation like that is like someone stabbing you and then twisting the knife. It's really, really, really seriously painful. Okay, this is one of my favorite ones ever. During a sleepover at Rei's house, Muni saw Rinku take rice off of Rei's cheek. Wanting this attention too, Muni puts rice on her own cheeks. However, she put on too much and Rinku just was like, "Aha! You look like a baby right now, Muni. That's so funny."
ムニちゃんもご飯粒ついてる。なんか赤ちゃんみたい。
Muni went attention seeking and got a kind that she wasn't looking for at all. She shot for the stars and landed in the ocean. So yeah, those are some bits that I think showcase Muni's symptoms very well. These small moments are a large part of why I think Muni is a really good representation of BPD, because it's not the big, terrifying, sad depictions we see in our regular media. Not that there's anything wrong with those. She's not just the suffering BPD girl. She feels real. Plus, seeing the smaller stuff is so much more comforting to me. I love seeing things represented that wouldn't be shown otherwise. And now, on to episode 12. D4DJ's anime shows a lot of behaviors from Muni that point to her having BPD. However, I think the most important part of the show in terms of this has to be episode 12. Episode 12 is not only one of the most clear, unadulterated examples of Muni's BPD, but it is also a fantastic portrayal of those behaviors as a whole. The episode shows these behaviors in a healthy and understanding light, as opposed to other pieces of media which would have fully demonized them. Muni and her BPD is the main focus here, and God, they wrote it so well, intentional or not. This episode is about Rinku and Muni's relationship during a period of time where Muni is furious with Rinku for reasons she refuses to open up about. Said reasons are Muni feeling abandoned by Rinku all throughout her childhood, when Rinku suddenly moved to Africa, and in her day-to-day. It gets brought up because of the scene where Muni and Rinku are supposed to be having fun together, but 1, Rinku was only with Muni because she couldn't hang out with the others in Happy Round 2, and 2, Rinku got on the phone with Toa in the middle of their hangout sesh, exclaiming that she wishes she could be where Toa is, but she's with Muni right now. And also 3, during this, Rinku haphazardly shoved Muni into this awkward position where she had to play this game she just wasn't strong enough for, both devaluing her and humiliating her at the same time. Rinku has no clue what she's done wrong, and that stuff just wasn't as serious to her. And I can see why. I described these things from Muni's perspective, which made them sound pretty bad. But to Rinku, none of this stuff was serious at all. Her intentions were not bad. Thinking of Muni as lesser wasn't even on her mind. With this, Rinku begins to grow into intensely anxious from the fear of what she could have done to upset Muni so much. She gets to the point where she's bursting out crying simply from a lack of communication between her and Muni. Maho and Rei notice the tension between the two and try to get Muni's side of things. Muni isn't really furious with Rinku, but instead she's afraid of being unimportant to Rinku. This fear manifests as being cold and antagonistic, a frustration with Rinku, even though Muni obviously doesn't want to be hurting her best friend. Here, she states that she messed everything up again.
ムニさんが言ってました。またダメにしちゃったって。
また
Okay, let's pause this episode description a little. Muni's cold reaction to Rinku is something so insanely real. BPDers often give the silent treatment and dish out passive-aggressive comments because we feel our emotions so intensely and we struggle to resolve them, especially alone. But when we don't communicate, we can't get a helping hand in that. It's like a death cycle of silence. And it sucks because oftentimes when we do speak up, it all comes out in counterproductive, antagonizing. I'm not saying that I shouldn't be held accountable for my actions. Many people with BPD reluctantly understand this, but it just genuinely feels like everything I'm saying and doing is coming from some deep, dark place that isn't even connected to myself, even though it's coming out of my own mouth. Everything I want to say to this person who I care about so much either doesn't come out or it comes out in a completely contrary way than I want it to. BPD really feels like constantly trying to keep something within you at bay. It's hard. It's really damn hard. Anyway, back to the episode. Maho and Rei end up cornering the two in a rap battle. If that sounds strange, don't worry, it works in the context of the episode, just trust me. Muni and Rinku let out their feelings. They both open up, finally explaining and clearing things up that neither of them understood. Muni was afraid of Rinku leaving her, just like she did when she moved away when they were kids. And Rinku cares about Muni more than anything, no matter how many miles away they are. All is well again, and they can move on from this bump in the road and continue being best friends. This episode, without a doubt, is portraying a BPD outburst. In front of the person who caused the outburst, all the person with BPD shows is their own form of rage and distaste. However, in front of bystanders or in private, the person with BPD will often blame themselves for what they have done. Muni does exactly this in the episode, and as someone with BPD, I can vouch that this is a real and intense experience. Muni refuses to talk things out with Rinku by her own volition, being cold and passive-aggressive towards her, but Muni seems to easily talk things out with Rei, and not with a drop of bitterness throughout the whole scene. Muni places the blame on herself for breaking her promise with Rinku to write letters when she moved away for Africa, and for closing herself off again just like she did back then. This is the reality of BPD. Again, not everyone's BPD, but hey, if I'm relating to it, someone else with the disorder has to. I think that this episode is a positive portrayal of BPD because it doesn't frame Muni as a monster. Muni's reasons for being mad at Rinku are shown to be real and valid, even if they seem to have appeared intensely and out of the blue. It's shown not as a detriment or Muni being crazy, but as a problem to solve. Nobody says that Muni is being dramatic or irrational, and they treat Muni's feelings as important. I cannot stress enough just how fantastic the rap battle scene is. If you want to see a great example of what a productive encounter with BPD emotions looks like, there it is. Oh, and a side note, if you want an example of a non-progressive BPD fight, the scene where they're practicing rapping is also fantastic. I hate watching it though. It's way too real and it makes me so sad and uncomfortable. Comfort character, more like discomfort character, am I right, y'all? As seen in the episode, BPD can not only have a strong effect on the person with the disorder, but also on those surrounding it as well. Happy Around's DJ work had to be put on hold because of this conflict caused by Muni, and Rinku definitely got the worst of it being Muni's best friend, and FP. The experience can be horrifying for all parties involved. Friends with those of BPD could feel annoyed, bewildered, sad, or hated, and those with the disorder may feel rejected, unloved, unimportant, and they may give up on trying to make these things better because they feel like they're unsalvageable villains who will just continue to do wrong and hurt the people that they desperately don't want to be hurting. It almost feels like it's in our nature. But at the end of the day, the right people will still be there for us after the storm, helping us through what we felt and cleaning up this mess with us. Just because we need a little patience doesn't mean we have no value. Having outbursts does not make us bad people, and it certainly doesn't make us irredeemable villains. We are still human, and we still deserve connection. We are not unlovable. There's nothing more relieving than showing someone the worst parts of yourself, the self-sabotaging parts that seem like they're trying to ruin things every single second. And then the people you show that to are staying, still caring, seeing through your words just as you crave for them to. It's odd. It's really, really odd. It's almost magic how people like them can exist. It's like no matter what bumps appear on the road, all of Happy Around will be there for Muni. That patience is so important. It makes us feel like we're allowed to live and like we're not just problems for everybody in our lives. And really, isn't that closeness, that acceptance, that patience, isn't that the perfect ending for someone with BPD? Okay, whatever. Emotional outro aside, can we talk about this card because it is so BPD coded? Not only are hot pink and neon purple the colors of the BPD nation, Rinku is all over her walls. You have a problem, girl. FP having behavior, FP having behavior, FP having behavior. Learning I had borderline personality disorder completely changed my life. Initially, I was convinced it was for the worst. I felt like, oh God, is this really who I am? Was I born like this? Am I going to stay this way forever? Everything finally made sense, and it was heartbreaking. But here I am today. I've made it to the big age of 18, I'm in college, and I'm striving to become a sequential artist. Things I genuinely pictured myself unable to do. The implication there is pretty obvious and pretty sad. I didn't think I would live this long. I really didn't, especially not with a lot of the stuff that's happened to me over the past 1 to 2 years. It would have been super understandable for me to have copped out, but I didn't. I don't know, maybe the stories I loved were too good. The songs I heard were too catchy. The ideas I needed to put out into the world were too important to me. And the people that I met? I thought I'd be a loner after losing certain ones. I never saw myself being here with a wonderful group of friends who I can say single-handedly helped me stay on this earth. Just like Happy Around is to Muni, my friends mean so much to me. Also, a large part of Muni's character that I mentioned a lot but didn't dive into was Muni having a favorite person, and that favorite person being Rinku. I had a whole section written on this, but I could not get it right. And after a bad experience with a former FP of mine, like a really horrible experience, I had to cut it out of the video for my own well-being. This is a very important topic to me, and I wanted to do it justice, but I hope you can understand that it's just a bit hard for me to write about. There's no easy way for me to write about it positively, so I hope that the way this video is now is enough. I really want to be proud of this one, since this is a theory I've had for a while that I love so much, and I'm so excited to share with you guys. At the time of writing this little ending part, I'm not going to be able to record or edit this for around 2 weeks, and I usually hate editing, but that is super agonizing for me. I love Muni, and I want more people to love her too. I need to spread my Muni BPD propaganda. Rah! I say this at the end of all of my videos like most YouTubers do, but this time I mean it more than anything. Thank you so much for watching this video. My borderline personality disorder is a huge part of my life. So is fiction. In fact, fiction is probably the biggest part of my life, so connecting the two, writing about it and sharing it with the people who want to relate or understand or just hear me ramble, that's the dream. God, that's the dream. Thank you so much for being here with me for this small moment. Make sure to keep living because that's the only way things can get better. I certainly know that to be true. See ya!